Good morning dear students, welcome to the class of construction technology. Today in 4th module we are going to deal about pointing and painting. In the 4th module till now we have discussed about the different types of arches, lintels, floor and floor covering materials, roof and roof covering materials, doors, windows, ventilators and plastering. Our topic of discussion today is pointing and painting. By the end of the session, we'll get answers for the questions. What is pointing? What are the types of pointing? What is a paint? What are the ingredients of paint? What are the types of paints? What are the process involved in painting on different surfaces? And what are the defects that occur in painting? Moving on to start with, what is pointing? The term pointing is applied to the finishing of mortar joints in masonry. In exposed masonry, joints are considered to be the weakest and most vulnerable spots from which rainwater or dampness enters. Pointing consists of raking the joints to a depth of 10 mm to 20 mm and filling it with better quality mortar in the desired shape. For this, lime mortar of 1:2 proportion and cement mortar of 1:3 proportion may be used. You may be familiar with it. 1:2 proportion means 1 part of cement and 2 parts of sand. This is an example of pointing. As you can see in the figure, the joints are being filled with mortar. Moving on to the types of pointing. The various types of pointing are flush pointing, cut, weathered or struck pointing, keyed or grooved pointing, V-grooved pointing, tuck pointing and beaded pointing. These are the various types. Now moving on to each one. Flush pointing. In this type of pointing, the mortar is pressed into the raked joints and finished off flush with the edges of the brick or stone so as to give a smooth appearance. That is flush pointing. Then moving on to the second one, cut or weathered pointing. In this type of pointing, the mortar is first pressed into raked joints. We already said raking is done to a depth of 10 to 20 mm. While the mortar is still green, the top of the horizontal joints is neatly pressed back by 3 to 6 mm with the pointing tool. Thus the joint is finished sloping from the top of the joint to its bottom. You can see it here. Moving on to the third one, keyed or grooved pointing. In this type of pointing, the mortar is pressed into the raked joints and finished off flush with the face of the wall. While the pressed mortar is still green, a groove is formed by running the bent end of a small steel rod. You can see the grooved pointing. Now, moving on to the fourth type, V-grooved pointing. It is similar to grooved pointing. In this type of pointing, a V-shaped groove is formed in the mortar joint by using a steel rod for forming the groove. It is more specific. A V-shaped groove is formed here. The fifth one, tuck pointing. In this type of pointing, the mortar is first pressed in the rake joints and after it is finished flush with the face of the wall. While the pressed mortar is still green, the top and bottom edges of the joints are cut parallel so as to have a projection of about 6 mm high and 10 mm in width. Next one is the beaded pointing. In this type of pointing, the mortar is pressed in the raked joints and finished off flush with the face of the wall. While the pressed mortar is still green, a steel rod having its end suitable shaped is run straight along the center line of the joints to form the beading. So these are the types of pointing. Just go through the types of pointing. Moving on to our next topic, what is a paint? Paint is coatings of fluid material which are applied as a final finish to all surfaces. We should understand the characteristics of an ideal paint and the uses of paint. First one is, what are the characteristics of an ideal paint? It should dry quickly. It should be easy to apply and cover large surface areas. It should not be harmful to health. It should not react with wall or wooden material. The paint should not be affected by weathering actions of the atmospheric agencies, and it should be hard and durable. These are the characteristics of an ideal paint. Moving on to the uses. It protects the surface from weathering and effects of the atmosphere, prevents the decay of wooden members, prevents corrosion, provides a smooth surface, provides a pleasing colorful appearance, increases the life of building, and covers the defective workmanship and materials. These are the uses of paint. Next, on to the most important part of the module, that is the ingredients of paint. Now, this is very useful in practical cases also. We need to understand the ingredients of paint in detail. The paint consists of 6 ingredients. It is base, carrier, extender, pigments, solvent or thinner, and dry. Let's move on to the first ingredient. It is base. It is the main ingredient which offers an opaque coating on the surface to be painted and imparts durability. It consists of metallic oxides of white lead, red lead, zinc, iron, aluminium, titanium in the form of powder. So this is very important. These examples, that is the compounds that are used as base, is important. You should write it for the exam. Moving on to the next ingredient, it is carrier. Carrier or vehicle or binder is the liquid in which other ingredients float on suspension. It binds the base and the added coloring pigment, so also called as binder. Commonly used vehicles or carrier are linseed oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, tobacco seed, etc. Okay, that is base and carrier. Moving on to the next. Extender. The material added to increase durability and to reduce the cost. It minimizes the shrinkage and cracking. Commonly used extenders are calcium carbonate, barium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, powdered chalk, charcoal, etc. That is all about extender. Moving on to the next ingredient, pigment. As the name suggests, as we all know, this is the ingredient that provides the color. These are mineral powders which imparts the color, makes paint film impermeable as well as weather resistant. Moving on to the next component, solvent or thinner. It is a liquid which thins the paint. Usually used solvents are turpentine, petroleum, spirit, etc. And the last ingredient is dryer. It accelerates the process of drying. Lead monoxide, manganese sulfate, etc. are commonly used dryers. Moving on to the types of paint. The types of paints are aluminium paint, anti-corrosive paint, bituminous paint, cement paint, emulsion paint, enamel paint, plastic paint, oil paint. You can see the figures of each paints. Aluminium paint, anti-corrosive paint, black bituminous paint, cement paint, emulsion paint, enamel paint, plastic paint, and oil paints. These are the various types of. The various process of painting a new wooden work are preparation of surface. The surface should be seasoned, the moisture should be less, and it should be dusted off. Noting, covering or killing the notes. It can be done in 2 methods, size noting and patent. The next one is priming. The application of first coat of paint is known as priming. Next is topping. After the priming cover is applied, again the holes and nails or cracks are filled. Undercoatings means second and successive coatings are applied. Last one is the finishing coat. After the undercoatings are dry, perfectly dry, the finishing coat is applied, that too carefully by a skilled labor. Moving on to the various defects in painting. This include blistering, as you can see in the figure, blooming, flaking, flashing, grinning, running, wrinkling, and saponification. These are the common defects. Moving on to the previous year questions. Before that, in the beginning we had certain questions. What is pointing? Why pointing is done? What are the types of pointing? What is a paint? What are the ingredients of paint? How painting can be done, that is the process of painting, and what are the defects in painting. So from these questions, the previous year questions asked are explain painting. As you all know, here you need to explain the characteristics of an ideal paint and the uses of paints too. What are the ingredients of paint? The 6 ingredients, that is the base, carrier, extender, pigment, solvent, and dryer. What are the common defects in painting that we discussed at the last? Blistering, blooming, flaking, flashing, grinning, running, wrinkling, and saponification. These are the previous year questions. And now you have an assignment based on today's discussion. We only discussed about the process of painting on a new wooden work. You need to do as assignment the following 2 cases: the process of painting iron and steel works and painting plastered surfaces. Thank you.